Hello, everybody, and welcome to Talk a Good Game, where unfortunately it has just finished Brighton and Hove Albion 3, West Ham United 1. If you're looking at it and thinking, oh, G and Gonzo got good looking, they're not here. They're both busy today, unfortunately. And so you have me. But fortunately, you do have Irish Tommy, who means that we do have at least 50% some intelligence on this show. And I guess before we get fully underway, we should say a couple of things. First thing, we're not, when we talk about the game specifically, remember, we're not talking about the season as a whole. We will touch on that towards the end of the show. So when we say stuff like lackluster or disappointing, we aren't talking about the entire season. We're just talking specifically about this match. And just give me a sort of, before we get into the nitty gritty, Tommy, give me a sort of general. What's your general vibe of the game? How do you feel after that? Because I'm sort of like, okay, almost predictable, I guess.
Yeah, the curse continues, unfortunately. I just feel very deflated, really deflated, because I think the one scenario today that could actually kind of annoy me a bit was if Palace held up their end of the deal. And we didn't do ourselves any favours, if it was in our hands and we didn't grasp it. And unfortunately, that's how it's turned out. I fancied Palace in that game against United. I did not fancy United to win that game. I kind of knew it would come down to if we could break our duck against Brighton. And unfortunately, we haven't been able to do that. Like I say, when the dust settles on the season, we'll have a lot of very positive things to say, but as you said, this is a review of today's game and today's game only. And I'm really disappointed, really deflated, because it was there for us. Sixth place was there for us, and we mucked it up. And that's really the sense of that game that I'm left with right now.
Yeah, like I say, we will touch on the season as a whole towards the end, but for now, I do feel an overwhelming sense of disappointment, and it's not like it wasn't predictable. Like I say, I think the chat on the watch along at the beginning, there were a few people going, how much do you want to bet that Crystal Palace do it and we flop? And for a while, it seemed like it almost felt like it might not happen. I mean, end of the first half, we're 1-0 up. Mikel Antonio scores from outside the box. If ever there was something which was like, hang on, maybe today won't be usual. And look, listen, as someone in the chat said, it might only be 18.00001 yards. But the point is, Tommy, is I'm saying it was outside the box. Mikel Antonio hits an absolute screamer into the top corner.
Yeah, I mean, Antonio scoring from anywhere is rare enough, but for him to score from outside the penalty area is about as rare as rocking horse shit. So I couldn't believe it. Usually he puts his boot through those and they end up in the top tier. It's not his greatest asset, is it? Really, his long range shooting. Although he did score an absolute screamer last year for Jamaica, but it's not really his forte, shall we say? But yeah, it was. He put his foot through it and it stayed down amazingly. So that was a timely goal, and put us 1-0 up. And obviously we took that lead into the break, and I thought first half, actually we played really well. We absolutely deserved to be in the lead. I was starting to get a little bit worried before that goal, because we were on top. We were playing very well. Brighton were seeing very little of the ball. They were having sporadic attacks on the counter, but they really didn't look threatening, Brighton, in that first half. We had a lot of possession. We had a lot of the ball in their half, and particularly in and around their penalty box. Everything seemed to be coming down our right-hand side. So Bell was seeing an awful lot of ball. A lot of crosses were coming in, and we were pressing. We looked like we really wanted it, like we really wanted to win that game and try and nick that sixth spot. And, we absolutely deserved to go in with a lead. It could have been more even. It's just, again, I thought, some of the final balls, it's been a feature this season, a lot of games, the final ball just hasn't quite been there. There seems to be a lot of kind of almost just generic balls going in with the final pass. Just dump across in there. They're not particularly aimed at anyone. They're just aimed into an area, and it's like, right, someone try and get on the end of it. They're not really aimed passes or aimed balls. They're just played into areas, and that stuff is a bit hit and miss, and mostly miss, unfortunately. when they're not aimed balls. But I think that's something we need to look at for next season. But we certainly were much the better team first half. We were playing well. I was very happy at half time, I have to say. I thought everybody put in a shift. They looked hungry. Brighton looked like a team that actually didn't need the points. They didn't really put their shoulder to the wheel, did they, Brighton, that first half? And I thought, oh, this could be a bit like the Norwich game. Not that we're going to tank Brighton 4-0, but I thought, Brighton just might not have the psychology to really, really push for this, because they really don't need it. And I thought maybe we'll be okay here. Unfortunately not. They were a very, very different team second half, Brighton.
Yeah, I felt like, with the Antonio goal, it's one of those ones where you got to be in it to win it. And I don't think there was it's not the most, how would I word this politely? I don't think he entirely is the most technically gifted footballer on the planet. Let's put that. But he does what he needs to do. He swings round from behind. He catches the goalkeeper completely unawares, puts his laces through it, like you say, and it goes flying into the top corner. Incredible from Mikel Antonio. The fact it's outside the area made it all the more beautiful. I was going mad. I think the first half in general, I think we could have been more ahead, but like you say, I think we're missing that final pass. I thought Brighton were. I don't think either team could have complained if they were in the lead at halftime. I don't think Brighton were miles better than us, but I think they were fine. Like, I think when they counterattacked, the one thing the two things I was really impressed with Brighton in that first half, and it sort of played out a little bit like this in the second as well, is when they counterattacked very quickly with numbers. Like, when we counterattack a lot of the time and it's Mikel Antonio steaming forward or Jared Bowen steaming forward, and at best you usually get Mikel Antonio or Jared Bowen with them. And that's fine because they're two players who can cause a lot of problem and damage. Brighton were getting forward and they would fly forward on the counterattack and there would already be 4 or 5 players in and around the box trying to do something. And I was like, that's pretty impressive. And the other thing that was impressive about it was when they would cross the ball in, they weren't doing what we do and what basically every other team does. Or at least it didn't seem like what they were doing was lofting it up into the air and trying to get someone to attack the ball to header it. A lot of the time they were headering it back down to other people. They were getting knockdowns and going for those second balls, and it was because they had so many people in and around the area. And it was definitely something I was looking at kind of dangerously, because Solly March was having a lot of joy down the right-hand side and causing us damage. And most of the time when teams do that and they're in and around the sort of corner quadrant, as I call it, and are lofting in those balls to the box, I'm relatively confident. We've got Dawson, we've got Zuma, we've got Souček. These are people who are big enough to just go, nope, bang, head it away, and not a problem. They had so many people in and around the area and were just nodding it down. They weren't attacking it. They were almost assisting for other things, that it was causing me some concern. But going in at half time, I felt like, do you know what? It doesn't really matter, even if I did think Brighton was slightly better than us. I don't think they were particularly scintillating, but I don't think we were either. All that mattered to me was the win. All that mattered to me was the win. As long as we got a win, I don't really care how it came. There were 2 options for me today, and it was we either get a win no matter what, or we just put in a fighting performance. And the second half starts, and you might have to carry this a little bit. I've seen the goal, you have to carry it a little bit, because I can't lie, definitely me watching legally in North America was going very poorly for a while in that second half. But it didn't take long for Brighton to equalise with Veltman. No,
it didn't. Brighton came out a completely different team second half. They came out completely re-energised. It was like the riot act had been read to them in the dressing room, that they needed to wake up. And they played with much more intensity right from the kickoff in the second half. They were much busier, closing down. The high press was starting to work. They looked like a team that suddenly were interested and wanted to actually try and win the game. And the writing kind of was on the wall. You were thinking, oh, this isn't good. I don't like this. Now Brighton have come out to play second half. And we were struggling, to contain them. They'd created some half chances. We'd had to do some scrambling defensively before their goal came. And it just had a feel about it that, oh, geez, we need to survive this little period here. Unfortunately, though, we weren't able to do it. It didn't really take them long to get back on level terms, unfortunately. So that was disappointing, because I felt just after that spell, in the first kind of 10-minute spell of the second half, where they came out with intensity. I felt Brighton kind of fell into a little bit of a lull again for a while, and I just was thinking, geez, if we could have just survived that little period unscathed and had held them out and had remained 1-0 up after that little spell, that we might have been okay. Unfortunately, though, we weren't able to do it, and the goal just felt like it was coming at that point. We were just struggling a little bit.
Yeah, and it's exactly what I picked up. It's exactly that the crossing thing I was talking about. Ball gets floated into the box. It's nodded down to Veltman, who drives it. Do you think Fabianski, should he have done better with that?
Yeah, Fabianski has to take blame on this one, I'm afraid. I don't know why, but Fabianski tried to preempt where the shot was going, and he dived to his right before the shot even came in. So just as Veltman was hitting the shot, Fabianski just dives to his right, assuming he's going to go across him. But Veltman hits it towards the near post, and Fabianski's already dived past it, and he tries to kind of get a leg to it to keep it out, and he does manage to get something on it, but not enough to keep it out. So I don't know why Fabianski was abandoning his near post prematurely, but it was a terrible decision. And unfortunately, it cost us, and to just really changed the game completely from that point. So Fabianski definitely, at fault for that. That shouldn't have gone in. If Fabianski holds his ground, stands his ground, and waits to see where the shot's going, he saves it. So yeah, I think anyone who looks back at it, when Fabianski looks back at it, he probably knows himself now anyway. But he knows he's really made a blunder there. He went way too early.
Yeah, he did. It's frustrating to see. And between that and the next goal that happened on the 80th minute, this is where I think most of my frustration from today comes from. Is I felt like that we already knew going into this game we needed nothing but a win. If we were going to try and get Europa League, and look, I'll be the first, and we'll talk about this after. I'm happy with Conference League. Personally, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing some teams that we don't usually face. I think we've got a good opportunity to win the competition. I'm really excited for it. But we knew before the game that if we wanted to get Europa League, and if we wanted to finish sixth, which would be an outrageously large achievement for a squad of our size in Europe as well, that we needed a win. And between this and their next goal, I was just sitting there going, let's make some subs. Let's make it happen. Let's get going. Let's do something here. And I know, again, David Moyes' hands were somewhat tied given the fact that, Saeed Benrahma's injured. It looks like Vlasic is probably injured because he wasn't in the matchday squad. But still, with the likes of Yarmolenko, Okaflex on the bench, Mark Noble on the bench, there were options. And I don't know, am I being harsh by saying I think we should have changed it up way earlier than we did?
This is my big frustration of the second half, and it's with Moyes. As you say, absolutely no reason to not make changes earlier and to just go for it. Yeah. Listen, our worst case scenario was 7th. Worst case. There's no need to not go for it. Yeah. There's no need to be coy in that situation. Like, those changes should have been made at 1-1 because, again, the writing was on the wall. The second goal was coming from Brighton. It was coming. We could all see it. We were doing nothing. I can't remember second half. I'm trying to think of a save that the Brighton keeper had to make second half, and I can't think of one.
Yeah.
Brighton were in the ascendancy. We were struggling. It was obvious we needed a spark from somewhere. And in the circumstances, there's nothing to lose. The goal is coming from Brighton. It's like that meme where the guy's poking the thing with the stick, like, do something. That's how I was feeling watching it. I like Moyes, hello. Come on, let's get some bodies on here. You may as well change it up and do something. I know it's not normally in his nature, but you would think even someone like Moyes, in the circumstances, would say, look, to hell with it. I'm going to throw caution to the wind here. We're just going to try and make something happen here. We're getting nothing done. Jared Bowen's not in the game. Fornals is a ghost. Lanzini's not really able to impact anything. And obviously, Mickey's doing his best up there. He's on his own. He's isolated. And so he was far too late when he did make changes. And then when he made the changes, they were the wrong changes. You know, he brings in this triple substitution down. 2-1 down, I'll never know. And then he brings on a defender, a sitting midfielder, and a forward. It's like, David, really? A defender and a sitting midfielder when we're desperate for a goal? Like, really? Like, change the formation, for Christ's sake. Bring on attacking players. Like, he could very easily, for example, switch the formation, say, to 4-1-4-1. You know, take Souček off. Just leave Rice as the sitting midfielder, go forward across the middle, move Bowen up top, move Mick out to the left, get Fornals off, and bring in Yarmolenko and Okoflex. You know, so now you've got Bowen, you've got Antonio, you've got Okoflex, you've got Yarmolenko all on there. Let's see if we can make something happen. So his substitutions came far too late, and when they did, they were the wrong substitutions. They were still quite defensive. You know, he still couldn't bring himself to go for it. What was Ben Johnson going to do? How's Ben Johnson going to turn the game around? We're 2-1 down. We're 2-1 down. Brighton are completely in the ascendancy. We're clinging on. We need a spark. We need to give them something to think about, and we need to take a chance. If we concede again, we concede again. But Jesus, at least try and get the win. Try and get the couple of goals that we need.
When is like you say, when there's nothing to lose, you know, because we're already in a position where we're not going to gain anything anyway. But B, you're not going to drop further down the table. Goal difference at this point literally doesn't matter at all. It's just a case of you might as well go for it, and we sort of didn't. And Brighton did. They made all 3 substitutions, and those subs works. You know, they come in for the second goal. Pascal Gross kind of. If we're being polite, then maybe saying similarly to Antonio, I think there's a bit more technique in that. But then he turns around, hits with his weak foot, and goes flying in the top corner. But you know, it's Lamptey who came on as a sub, flying forward. He's linking up with the players across the front line. They're running very easy, which is something they did, I think, too often in this game, into those central areas, just drifting in there and sort of getting passes all around. And it ends with Pascal Gross putting in the top corner and. Very, very in a very West Ham sort of David Moyes kind of way. Unfortunately, we make all 3 substitutions right as that goal happens. But what did you think of the Brighton goal specifically?
Again, as you said, we were really struggling at that point, and the goal was coming for some time. You know, the writing was on the wall, and you know we were struggling to contain them. They were creating a lot of half chances. We were doing scrambling defensively. It seemed all the time. They were stretching us down the left and the right. And just again on the substitutions, I mean, Brighton made the first substitution at half-time. They brought on Neil Maupay at half-time, made another one, I think, on the 65th minute. And this is a team who didn't need a win, who were being proactive, you know, and trying to turn the game around and change it in their favour. And that's what's actually really driving me mad. But that goal was coming. Moyes were again too slow to act. It didn't surprise me at all when it went in. Very frustrating. Again, you know, they were finding these little pockets of space. It has to be said, you know, Brighton's passing and interplay is actually really good.
It is. Yeah.
You know, and we've seen them do that. I mean, their form has been, you know, so good, you know, in recent weeks, and they've had some great results. And you know, they've really, I mean, look what they did to United. I mean, I know United are a bit of a shambles, but they did absolutely tear them to shreds, you know. And you know, they play some really nice stuff. And when they're in the ascendancy like that, you know, they will create openings. You know, their problem kind of last couple of seasons has been that they just create. They were doing this for a long time actually, but they just weren't able to score the goals. Yeah. But more recently, these last few weeks, they've actually found a way to actually turn that possession and that nice interplay and those chances that they create into goals. And we saw it again today. As you say, Pascal Gross, I think he just kind of turned on the ball and swung a foot at it. We can say on his weak foot, and it's one of those where he just, like Antonio's, I guess, where just law of averages, he just happened to catch it right, and it sailed into the corner. But it was a deserved lead for Brighton at that time because they were completely on top. It was predictable. It was coming. And again, Moyes has to take some of the blame for that, because he literally was just stood on the sideline doing absolutely nothing about it.
And then finally, they score what is a very West Ham United David Moyes goal. Corner, header, bang, 3-1, easy as you like. The one thing I would have been relatively confident about, is just our big people just stopping stuff like this happening. But no, it was as easy as you like, really. Just Danny Welbeck, of all people, getting a goal. I've been criticizing him all week, calling him poor. And he scores incredibly. He is. He scores incredible. It just felt at that point. I mean, at that point, it was sort of over. It didn't feel like on the pitch there was that much effort going on. It didn't feel like we were like, we're still going to get into this. We're still going to do this. And to see them get such a simple goal at the end was just like, yeah, well, there we go. That's that.
Yeah, yeah. It had the feel about it that the players, given the clock, that it was running down. There was only a little over 10 minutes left, and the players, it seemed like they knew that, okay, we need 2 goals.
Yeah.
Now we haven't got a shot off second half, and the players looked like they had kind of almost given up the ghost. I mean, they hadn't thrown the towel in, but I think they kind of knew that the jig was up at that stage, and it had that feel about it, that Brighton goal almost had an air of inevitability about it as well.
Yeah.
And so the corner came in. We didn't really attack it, as committedly as we might normally. I think our players were a little bit deflated at that point too, and maybe weren't quite at it at that point. And again, can't begrudge Brighton that third goal either. They deserved that goal too. They were completely on top second half, and it's incredibly disappointing, to go in 1-0 up, and I thought we played quite decently first half, and I was quite encouraged, but then to lose the second half 3-0, while David Moyes stands on the sideline for so long doing nothing about what was obviously coming, and then to make completely the wrong substitutions when he did. The whole second half really was just, it was terrible. It just wasn't good enough. I mean, that second half was one of our worst performances of the season.
It's a shame. It's a massive shame. And before we get on to, like I say, this is just talking about match specifically, we are going to end talking very briefly about the season as a whole, because I would quite like to end the last review with a bit of positivity, because obviously we've had to watch quite a bad second half there, and we all feel a bit down. So I'd at least like to end with a bit of that kind of stuff, because I do think there is a lot to celebrate this season. But before we get there, I mean, I'll give my final thoughts on the match, then ask you for yours, and if there were any specific players you would like to pick out as well, because I think it's one of those ones where it's frustrating because it just was so there. And I think Brighton turned up today and just showed what happens when you're proactive, and they have more than one plan. And I know that's something we've had a lot about. There's lots of conversations that happen all throughout the season about plan A's and plan B's and all this other sort of stuff, and how we don't really have that. And one of the things I've been sort of consistently critical of, and this is a good thing, but I think it harms us more than not. We have a muscle memory way of playing, which is get the ball out to, more often than not, Soufal, sometimes Cresswell, cross it in, like you say, not particularly difficult to deal with, not particularly mad crosses, just putting it into the mixer and getting, your likes of Souček and people to attack it, whatever. And that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to have an identity like that. It's not a bad thing to have a way of playing. If anything, that's a good thing. There's been a lot of times where we've seen as West Ham fans where we don't have that, and where we aren't particularly firing on all cylinders. We're just completely and utterly lost and don't know what we're doing. It's nice to know what we're doing, but the problem is everyone else knows what we're doing. And there was a lot of the time where we were just, again, trying to get the ball out to Soufal, trying to get the ball out to Cresswell, though Cresswell wasn't really venturing forward that much, but putting it into those positions and hoping that we get the ball in. And people like Cucurella just looked at Soufal and went, nope, not having that today. And he defended really well against him. There were times where he got too far forward, but he's quick enough to get back and stop it fast enough, Cucurella. And at the same time, his positioning was really nice. And when we are a little bit lost and we do revert to that sort of muscle memory play, there's not much else to us. And it's frustrating because today, if we had a little bit more like you say, that final pass, that little bit more invention in that final third, a little bit of a killer pass here, a bit of incision there, then we could have really taken it to Brighton and made this a game taken the game to them. And in that first half, it looked like we were sort of on the verge of doing it. And in the second half, we just didn't. And it's difficult. There were for me, I say if there were any players particularly you wanted to pick out, either positive or negatively, because to me, it's just sort of like a much of a muchness. I thought Antonio had a good first half, but second half, I wasn't super on. Apart from that, I don't really know how much from a West Ham perspective there would be to say. Again, before we get on to some nice stuff about the season, what are your final thoughts on the match, and are there any people you'd want to particularly single out?
I thought again, Declan Rice, I thought was really, really good. You could see he really wanted it, and he always does. He's such a competitor. I think he hates losing. So he will always try and compete, Declan Rice, and I think he kept going right to the finish. I thought again, Mikel Antonio really put in a shift, and I thought he really wanted it too, and he was really trying, although it was difficult for him in the second half because Brighton were so on top, and again he was isolated. You were talking about how well they break compared to us, and it just reminded me there was just a real illustration of that in the second half where we won the ball back and Declan Rice sprayed a diagonal ball up to Mikel Antonio, who was able to carry the ball inside their penalty area, on the left-hand side of their penalty area. And he literally had to stand there on the edge of the box for 10 seconds. And then eventually Lanzini got up there and he played it back 20 yards to Lanzini. Yeah. And Brighton had everybody back at that point. It was ridiculous. So that was a big issue for us. But I thought those two really, really played well. I thought Zuma had a decent game. I thought Sofel tried. Sofel had a decent game going forward, and he tried. He got a lot of ball, got on a lot of ball, particularly in the first half, and did get quite a few crosses in. I thought he did okay. But there were other players that just kind of went missing. And I have to say, Jared Bowen just didn't feature at all today. Lanzini really did nothing on the ball today. I thought Fornells was terrible. I don't know what's happened to Fornells. His passing has just gone to pot. I don't know what's happened to him. Passing was one of his strong points. Last season, he's a really good passer of a ball. And he still has his moments during the season. He'll pull a really nice ball out of the hat on occasion. But some of the simpler stuff with Fornells, there was one time he had to play a simple square ball to Lanzini when we were on the counter-attack, where we really could have created a shooting opportunity. Just a square ball, about maybe 10, 15 yards, and he just completely overhit it, and Lanzini had to chase the ball out towards the sideline. And so I don't know what the hell is going on with Fornells, that he's just forgotten how to pass. I thought he was dreadful today. And there were a lot of other very ordinary performances. So just not a good day at the office. There were very, very few players for us, I thought, that really played well today. I'm struggling after Rice and Antonio, to be honest. I'm trying to give someone else some credit by mentioning Sofal. But other than that, I thought there were performances were either ordinary or non-existent. So very disappointing.
Yeah, I think Rice is another good one because I forgot about him, but I thought he had a good game as well. Frustrating. I remember one specific one where Aaron Cresswell carried the ball forward and literally had his arms out to go, "Where is everyone?" And then stopped and just sort of went, as if to go, excuse me, can someone do something I can pass to? It's frustrating. But let's get on to just very briefly the season as a whole. I'm not going to go too deep into it. Just sort of your general thoughts on how you think it's gone, and who would your player of the season be? Mainly because I want to end on a positive. I'll go first. I think it's a 9 out of 10 season for me. The only way it could be higher is if I said this on Two Spanners, the Patreon exclusive podcast. If you want to listen to it, patreon.com/. The one thing I said on there was that if we played more youth, I would have given it a higher rating. And if we got to a cup final, I would have given it a higher rating. And if you win a cup, then it's instantly a 10 for me. Apart from that, those were really my only criticisms. I think from a season as a whole, I think it's been brilliant. I think it's been an incredible season. Probably arguably the best one, like results-wise, arguably the best one in my lifetime. Insane to get to a Europa League semi-final. The fact we've got European football 2 seasons in a row via being good enough to be in Europe 2 seasons in a row is mad. Like, obviously, we did 2 seasons in a row when we first moved to London Stadium, but one of those was through fair play and all this other sort of stuff. Like, the fact we've actually got in because we were good enough to get in is a huge achievement. And there's so many good things about this team, so many good players, so many things we can build on, but it's about actually building on it right now, so that when this situation comes up next season and we're in a scenario where we do need to change things up, we do have players we can turn to and bring on. We do have things we can do and actually change this game up. We do have a plan B. We do have everything we need. And that's building blocks. We're getting there. I look at this and I've been incredibly happy this season. It's difficult. It's like today is disappointing. And obviously we're all in a bad mood because it was such a crap way to end the season. But as a season as a whole, just to end on some positivity, I thought it was been an incredible season. So if I was to give player of the season, I would have given it to Jared Bowen. Who is your player of the season? What's your sort of overall thoughts before we end this? Before we ended this day, quite thankfully.
I just really thoroughly enjoyed this season. It was quite the adventure. I mean, Premier League has been really good. Look, we're top 7 finish. That's really good. You know. Yeah. Of course, we would have loved to get Europa League again, but them's the breaks, you know. But listen, that Conference League, you know, that's a competition we can go and win. You know, I think right off the bat we'll probably be favourites to win the bloody thing. You know, so or certainly up there before a ball is even kicked. So you know, there's a great chance for us in the Europa League to go and actually win some meaningful silverware for the club next season. You know, which would be wonderful. So yeah, disappointed about today, but you know we've got European football, so you know how bad. You know I'll enjoy looking at that next season, watching those games. You know, so Premier League season, I thought we've done pretty well, because there is an asterisk. You know, we were in Europe. You know, so you know the whole Thursday Sunday is. It's not easy, you know, to keep doing that, especially when we've gone so deep in the competition. So I think Premier League-wise, we've done very well to qualify for Europe. So I'm happy. But yeah, the big thing, the great excitement for me this season has been watching West Ham playing some big European games. You know, how long have we been waiting for that? You know, just forever. And you know, I will never forget, you know, sitting down on Thursday evenings, throwing on BT Sport and watching West Ham playing and beating Sevilla, playing and beating Lyon, knocking them out, you know, getting to a semi-final of a proper European competition. I really like the Europa League. I think that's a proper competition. I think it's really good. And I thoroughly enjoyed watching West Ham playing that this season. So I'm delighted we got European football again next season, and we've more to look forward to. So just some unbelievable memories, you know, to take from this season, particularly the European ones. We're used to Premier League. We do that. That's the bread and butter. And we've had some great performances in the Premier League too, some memorable wins and really great performances, particularly first half of the season. As well. Knocked City out the cup. You know, so we've had some great moments this season. Our first half of the season, I thought, was just tremendous. We've tailed off a bit, unfortunately, since the new year. Pity about that. But I think that Europa League knockout stage run kind of helped take the sting out of that, you know, because we had something else that we could be really excited about. You know, we were at the point where we were saying, oh, rest a bunch of players against Arsenal at home. You know, how often do we say rest players at home to Arsenal, London Derby, Joe, because we got a big European game coming up? You know, it was great. I think we've had Moyes is doing a fantastic job. His coaching staff, I think, are excellent, by the way. We maybe don't talk about that enough. It's not all Moyes. I mean, he's put a really good team together there, the staff, and I think the players have really done tremendously. Given, you know, it was quite a burden for them this season, given that, you know, how many games they've all had to play. Moyes doesn't like, you know, changing things up too much. He likes to try and keep the same 11 as much as possible with very few changes from game to game. Doesn't really make subs too much, and when he does, he does them late. So the players have had to put a shift in this season, and I think, you know, I think they've done tremendously well, and they all deserve a pat on the back, really.
I agree. Such a good season, and shame it ends in a bad way, but overall, exciting times ahead, hopefully. different. It won't be orange; it'll be green, but that's fine. That's all. Like we're going to see some competition. And look at the final of the Conference League this year. You know, it's not two teams no one's heard of. It's two big teams, and it's exciting to see that we're going to be in that mix. And like you say, we'll probably be favourites for the competition. But Tommy, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it. Let everyone know where they can find you on Twitter or anything else if they wish to, you know, get involved with Summer Japes.
Yeah, if they want to listen to my inane ranting. Feel free. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at Tomster36.
Get involved. I do highly appreciate it.
Just a point. I absolutely will follow you back if you're West Ham.
There you go. I would highly recommend it. If you missed out on some lovely Kate Nash arguments this year, but apart from that, you get some Sean from Tommy.
I swear that was. I got bantered off by Kate Nash.
It was incredible. What a day that was. What a day that was. I remember seeing it live. Oh, it was unreal.
Good times.
Good times. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching every video we've done this season. Just because it's over doesn't mean we don't have stuff coming up. I'm sure we'll have some sort of post-match thoughts from Gio and Gonzo at some point as well. But that doesn't matter because over the course of summer, we've got tons of stuff coming up. We've been having conversations about it, planning it. Some of it's already in the works. So make sure if you haven't already to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you don't miss out on any of that good stuff. Hit the like button while you're here. And thank you very much one last time. It has ended, unfortunately, 3-1, but we have got Europa Conference League, and we will see you next season. Come on, you Irons. See you later.
Come on, you Irons.